Leah here from MagicByLeah.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a miniature marble teddy bear which you can use as a charm, pendant, or just standalone. For this marble teddy bear you'll want a nice striking color of polymer clay, I'm using purple, white to balance, and then black clay for the eyes and nose. You'll also want a blade. Here I have a small cutting tool and a super slicer and some handmade needle tools. If you're doing the charm or pendant, you'll also want an eye pin or craft wire, which is what I'll be using. You'll want pliers and a wire cutting tool to work the wire, and a pasta machine to condition the clay, but you can also use a rolling pin or your hands. Teddy bears are just one of the coolest projects you can make, and they're really easy and exciting. Here's 3 little guys I made back when I first started sculpting, back in high school. And here's a recent one that I did. This is a marble teddy bear, and this is the style we're going for today. Because it's so tiny, you don't need that much clay, but I always like to condition extra so I don't run out in the middle. I'll run these through the pasta machine and then we'll start mixing. With the individual colors conditioned, to make the marble effect, we're going to mix it, but not all the way. I like to roll them out into logs and then twist the clay together. So we're going to do a series of rolling and twisting and rolling and twisting. So the clay starts to mix but doesn't all the way. Notice how you can still see the pink and white in this one? That's what we're going for. I'm rolling my hands in opposite directions, which gives me a much tighter mix over here. And notice the ends tend to be solid colors, so I like to put them in the middle when I roll it over. And then we just twist again, and then just roll it back onto itself. So I'm not being too careful, but I'm making sure I don't fully mix them. If you find that it doesn't stick together, like it's feeling very loose here, just roll it into a ball and start again. Here's the ball, and we'll roll it out again. It doesn't have to be perfect. Notice how the colors are starting to blend? That's what we want. After you've done this a couple of times, you want to see the progress to make sure you're not mixing it all the way. Just slice through and take a look. You see how the colors are starting to mix? I'd stop somewhere here. The next thing we want to do is cut approximate shapes for the teddy bear. Now this is a cool project because you can't really go wrong. You can have skinny, fat, long arms, short arms, it doesn't matter. Here we go, that looks good. So we have the largest ball for the body and then a smaller one for the head, 2 small pieces for the arms, 2 smaller ones for the legs, and let's not forget a tiny tail. We'll start with the body, and what I like to do now is find where I like the pattern best. And sometimes the best pattern comes up when you cut this thing open and then just squeeze it together so that the inside is now the outside. Look at that. And then roll it into a ball. So now that I have colors that I like, I'm going to flatten it and elongate it a little bit. Kind of like an egg, but a flattened egg. Now if you're leaving this as a miniature, don't worry about the wire, just continue with the sculpting parts. But if you want this to be a charm or pendant, this is where you want to insert the wire. I have a piece of wire that is longer than what I'll need. I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I'm going to hook the bottom so that when I run it through the clay and it slides up, it'll catch, and that way it won't come out. Because you would hate to work so hard, make a charm, only to have the wire come out at the end. And this is also a good way to make sure the body is attached to the head. So we're going to go from the bottom and then just run the wire in. If the wire is too thick, you can always make a hole first with a needle tool. I'm using a gentle twisting motion so it doesn't distort. And now that there's a hole, the wire goes right through. Pull it through just enough so that it's embedded. Notice how it's catching the clay. And then smooth the bottom over so that it doesn't show. Here we go, there's the body. Next we'll do the head. Another way to bring out the patterns is to squeeze it. That forces the clay to mix around a little. And roll it up. And there we go, look at that. Choose where you want for the front of the head. Now, I don't want so much white because the muzzle will be white, so I'm going to try a different angle. That's much better. Actually, once again, make a hole so that you can run the wire through it. So here we have the head and the body. Push the head down a little bit so that it attaches to the body. The sticky clay will hold, and then when you bake it, the bond will be permanent. For the legs, I'll start with rolling the two pieces into a circle and then elongate them slightly. For the legs, we'll roll them into balls and then elongate them slightly. You also want to make sure they're approximately the same size. I want the top to be chubby, so I'm going to press down a little bit and roll, but notice I'm not rolling the entire thing. I'm only rolling starting a little bit away from the edge so that I have a fat top where the toes are. See the shape and how it's tapered towards the front? You can also pinch it a little bit. That'll bring that to define the toe area. And we'll do the same thing for the second one. Once they're approximately even, figure out the size that you want and then just cut it to size. That's why it didn't matter if they didn't start out the same exact size. That's about how I want it. Now, instead of cutting them straight this way, I'm going to cut it at an angle. This way, the way that it's tapered, I'll be able to attach it and it sits nicely instead of sticking out at an awkward angle. So I'm attaching it starting from the back and then leaning it towards the front. Do the same thing for the second one. If it's sitting up that way, slice it at an angle here. This one's a little chubbier, so I'll pinch it to lengthen it. Now, just because clay sticks when it's wet doesn't mean it adhered properly, so I like to use a needle tool to roll over it gently and drag some clay from the leg into the body to make sure that it's really connected. Now we'll do the same thing for the arms, but we want them smaller and we don't need that pinch for the toes. Now if you notice, the top one has a nice intricate pattern where the colors are wavy, but the bottom one looks boring. There's just stripes going through it. So one way to fix that is to take it and just slightly twist it to give it a little bit more of an interesting pattern. How much cooler is that? And you want to taper it a little bit at the front. Just like the legs, I'm not going to cut them straight down. I'll cut it at an angle. I want to make this a little longer so I can wrap it around the back, so I'm just going to pinch it and drag it out a little. Same thing for the other arm. Once again, start towards the back, make sure the arm is long enough, and then wrap it around. I like to wrap this downward from the shoulder rather than just around the back, because I think it gives the bear a little more personality. And if one arm is longer than the other, just move it more back or cut it a little. Once you're happy with the position, grab a needle tool and press and roll it in to make sure that it sticks. Alright, so now we go on to the face. I like to use white clay for the muzzle, or I'll check my pattern and find a mostly white portion and use that because I want it to pop. Here we go. Found a mostly white piece. I'll roll it into a ball. Find the whitest part with a little bit of purple on it and flatten it so that the white is on top. This is one option. Looking at this teddy bear, it does look very busy, so I'm going to swap this out for pure white clay. Here I have a flattened white ball of clay, and I'll put that on the lower part of the face. I'll use the needle tool to roll it in gently and make sure that it sticks. I like my teddy bears to have big ears, so let me cut another piece, and we'll get two somewhat large balls to use as ears. Now how cute is that? I want to point out here how casual this is. Some people get so locked into what are the exact sizes, they take the fun out of it, but notice I didn't really measure anything. The sizes are not perfect. But I think it's cute and I'm having fun, and that's your goal, right? Isn't that why you sculpt, to have fun? I'm turning it until I find a pattern that will look nice against the face. I like that one there. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, because my experience taught me that ears are the most common thing to fall off. So I'll start with a thin needle tool, and I'll stick it about halfway into the ear, and then press it towards the face so that it sticks. And I'll do the same thing for the other side. Once I'm happy with the position, I'll hollow it out using a larger needle tool and rotate it in circles to make that opening. You can make this as big or small as you want, and once again just press towards the head to make sure it's firmly attached. Sometimes you get a little carried away like I did and make a hole in the back. Just drag the clay with the needle and seal up that hole. You want to make it look nice. There we go. And I almost forgot the tail. So grab another ball of clay, flatten it out a little bit so that you have where to attach it. Turn this thing upside down and press the tail on there. Once again, I'll use the needle tool to just gently roll it in to make sure the tail sticks. Look at that little bum. If you're doing this as a pendant, you may want to consider rolling the tail up so that it doesn't tickle your neck when you're wearing it. If it's a charm, then it's not as bad. And if it's a miniature, definitely leave the tail out because that's really cute. I'm conditioning a small piece of black clay, which I'll then use for the eyes and nose. Start with the nose, and you'll have to play around with the size, see what looks cute on your teddy bear. Start by rolling it into a ball, and then pinching it between 3 of my fingers to get a triangle shape. Flatten it out a little, and then attach it. Make a little indentation where you want it so that it'll have where to stick, and then attach it in there. If it doesn't line up, just use a needle tool to straighten it or move it as needed. I have 2 small black balls for the eyes. First find where you want them and then flatten it in. I like to make the pupil with a thin needle tool, and this also helps make sure the eyes don't move because it sticks them into place. Last but not least, we need a mouth and we're good to go. There are many different shapes you can use for the mouth. Notice my old teddy bears, I gave them a smile. Lopsided smile, but they're still smiling. And for this one, I did more of a V shape, and that's what I'm going to do here, an upside down V. So I'll come down from the nose and just kind of carve it in there. We'll make him smile, so we'll turn it. Same thing on the other side. And there he is, all ready for the oven. I'm going to bake him according to the instructions on the clay package and let him cool in the oven before I continue. I decided to sculpt 2 more little ones just to see how small I can go. I love this little guy with the giant ears. Bake them and let them cool overnight. The 2 little ones are miniatures, so we'll leave them, but the large one's a pendant. Since this is a pendant, I'm just going to loop the wire so that you can thread a necklace or a string through it. And here you have it. This little guy can be used as a charm or worn as a necklace. You can even hang it up in your car. For a detailed list of supplies used in this project, along with answers to your specific questions, visit my website, MagicByLeah.com, or click the link in the description. I will be uploading new videos regularly, so be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, but for even more bonus tutorials, tips, and so much more, join my email newsletter by clicking the link in the description or visiting my website, MagicByLeah.com.